Aarav was born in a quiet village carved between mountains and a raging river. The river ran fast, angry, and unforgiving. It was wide enough to swallow hope, and deep enough to drown dreams. For generations, it split the land in two. On one side, the people lived with little: dry soil, small crops, and endless waiting. On the other side, they said the grass was green, the markets full, and the fields generous. But no one from Aarav's side ever crossed. They all looked at the river and said, "It's impossible." Aarav grew up hearing that word, impossible. When he was a boy, he watched his father lose their crops in a flood. When he was a man, he watched his friends leave the village in search of something better. And when he grew old, he realized something painful. No one was coming to save them. One morning, with the sun barely breaking through the fog, he took a hammer and a few planks of wood and walked to the riverbank. The ground was cold. The wind bit through his skin. "Still," he began. He drove the first post into the soil. It sank, wobbled, and almost fell, but he pushed it deeper. Day after day, he returned. People watched, confused, then amused. "Old man, the river's too wide," they shouted. "You'll die before it's finished." Aarav didn't argue. He just smiled the way tired men smile when they've already decided. "I'm not building it for me," he said. "I'm building it for whoever dares to cross after me." Seasons changed. Summers burned, winters froze. The river rose and fell, but Aarav stayed. Sometimes his bridge broke halfway. Sometimes the current took everything he built. He'd sit on the mud, staring at the shattered pieces drifting away. And then he'd start again. Years passed. His hair turned white, his back bent, but his will didn't. Even when his hands trembled too much to hold the hammer, he found a way. He tied the rope with his teeth. He leaned on his knees. He built, not because he hoped to finish, but because he couldn't stand leaving it undone. By then, most villagers had stopped mocking him. Some pitied him. A few started to help. One brought rope. Another brought wood. No one said much, but they began to believe. Then came the flood, the biggest in 100 years. Rain tore through the mountains, and the river roared like it had waited a lifetime to destroy. The villagers ran for higher ground as water swallowed everything: homes, crops, roads. When the storm finally passed, they stood in silence, looking at the ruins. But through the mist, one thing stood untouched: the bridge. Half made of wood, half made of stone, strong enough to hold their hope. For the first time, people crossed. They found another village waiting, ready to help. And that's when they understood. The bridge wasn't just wood and rope. It was faith made real. The next morning, they went to thank Aarav. But his door was open, his chair empty. On the table, his hammer rested beside a small note. It read, "Greater than, if I had waited for someone else to start, we'd still be waiting." The villagers rebuilt everything. They planted new crops, traded goods, and told their children stories about the old man who built a bridge when everyone else said it couldn't be done. Years later, when travelers came and asked how the two villages became one, the elders pointed to the bridge, now strong as stone, and said, "One man decided that impossible was just a word for those who quit too early." The lesson: in life, you will meet rivers, doubts, fear, failure, people who say you can't. Most will stare at the current and walk away, but a few will start building. The world may not notice at first. They'll laugh, they'll doubt, they'll leave you alone. But when the storm comes, when everything breaks, Your bridge will still stand. So build, even if your hands bleed, even if it takes your whole life. Because someone, someday, will cross the river because you refuse to stop. And that will be your legacy.